Eyes on Longmont, offering a diversity of topics about our community that will inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy this edition of Eyes on Longmont.
Hi, I'm Helen and I run Artemis Flower Farm. We're here in Boulder, about 15 minutes north of the city on 63rd Street. And Artemis Flower Farm is a specialty cut flower farm, so we grow over 300 varieties, 100 species of all kinds of different cut flowers like tulips, zinnias, anemones, perennials like delphinium and larkspur, and all kinds of really wonderful things. And our farm is about 1.25 acres. That's one portion of the 17 acres that are here at the Treehouse Farm Collective. So we lease this land in common with two other farm entities, Speedwell Farm and Gardens and the Jolly Radish Farm. And we lease from Alice and Carl Sterick at the Golden Hoof. So we're really nicely embedded in a big group of farmers who are all committed to tending this land and regenerating it into something more healthy than it was before. So this place used to be a turkey farm and it was a feedlot, and then until recently it was in hemp for about 4 years. And so we've now come along and turned it into a regenerative flower farm and vegetable farm, and we've got broadacre crops like cabbages and wheat and onions that Jolly Radish Farm is doing. We also hold about 2.25 acres that we manage in common. So that area will become sort of more of a silvopasture or agroforestry type of place where we have big hedgerows of ornamental shrubs and edible shrubs, raspberries, etc., elderberries. And then in between those will be either pasture for animals or smaller plots as an incubator plot, or a place that we can grow something more intensive, like let's say winter squash, or for me, sunflowers. So that's who we are, and I run the farm with my partner Nelson, who you may have seen mowing, and we're just here to grow pretty things. So this bed is one of our perennial beds. So every 8 beds in this block, or in this field, I put a bed of perennials, and so that helps with creating bird habitat and animal habitat, keeps roots in the ground all winter, gives us windbreaks. So here we have something called coral spurge, which I really like as an early season greenery. It got a little smashed in the snow. Behind that we have tansy, and then I have some agastache, and then that silver stuff in the back is artemisia. So I grow a lot of different kinds of greenery and fillers because I make a lot of bouquets, and so I really need to have like a big mix of different kinds of flowers. So and then in here we have a bunch of different annuals, bupleurum and safflower, another big greenery that I do, cerinthe. I've got some Queen Anne's lace and purple lace flower. I grow some stock. My stock inside the hoop house this year failed because of that really deep freeze we had. It was really random. Yeah, it was like 15 degrees when it was supposed to be 26 or something like that. So we weren't ready. I've got 2 beds of straw flower here, which is a really great sort of everlasting flower.
So have you put most of these in just this year, or have these been here? I mean, they're perennials, but
right. Well, not all of them are perennials. Most of these are annuals. Like I
Okay.
said, it's every 8 beds that I have perennials, sometimes more. But let's see. So last year was our first season on this property. So everything you see here has been put in since the beginning of 2021, when we got our lease. So, for example, this field was entirely covered in plastic and hemp stalks. So that was what was left over after the hemp company left. And so we reformed the beds, put in all of the wood chips and everything in the aisles, put in, our perennials, and we actually reformed the beds to go east-west rather than north-south, because I like for my crops to shade the southern sun onto the next bed so that I get taller stems. Does that make sense?
Yes. Did you have to amend the soil also? I mean,
This soil is actually really amazing. We had some soil tests from, I think they were done in 2020, that showed we have 8% organic matter and really high phosphorus levels because it was a feedlot. And this particular field was still in pasture for a long time. So that's why the organic matter was still so high, and really hoping to keep it at that level. And then, no, I don't really do much amending, mainly because I'm still just observing what the land is doing and what it needs. And it is soil testing time, so I'll be sending in soil tests soon. And yeah, right now it's been doing really well for me without much amendment. I work really hard to increase the biological activity in the soil so that more of those nutrients are naturally available to the plant from the soil itself. And I work really hard also to make sure that I'm not taking too much out of the garden. I do take a lot of biomass with the flowers, but I try to leave as much as I can. So that means that when we turn over our beds, I'm leaving the roots in the ground. So for example, at the end of the year, last year, I just left everything standing. First of all, to hold moisture, because the standing vegetation will capture more snow. And then because having roots in the ground is really good for the soil biology. So then in the spring, or sometimes in the fall, I flail mowed. So it's a mower that flails like this and chops up the vegetation and leaves it on the soil as a mulch. So that's really important to me here. You can see I'm doing a lot of different kinds of mulching. I mulch with plants, I mulch with wood chips, I mulch with the plastic mulch, and that helps us in our dry Colorado climate to keep moisture in the soil and to therefore keep that biological activity going, because of course the bacteria and archaea and all of the other kingdoms of life that are in the soil really need water to keep persisting. So.
and your watering, is it a drip system?
Yeah, so the water is all our just drip system here. So that comes through this blue lay flat and through an underground pipe system. Our irrigation pond is just behind us here, and so we run just a low pressure pump, and it runs through the blue lay flat and then into our beds. So. So yeah, that's how the irrigation works. I do some hand watering in the beginning when we need it for germinating small seeds or direct seeded crops. Cody and Melissa run overhead sprinklers along with drip because they do a lot of direct seeding. So, but they have sort of a mobile system for that. So, yeah. And I can show you here one of our big projects last year was this peony patch. So this is about 700 peonies, and they're just starting to bloom. So, you're meant to leave the peonies for about 2 to 3 years before you begin harvesting. So I had somebody come and say, oh, they're baby peonies, and they are. They're little baby peonies that just are getting going this season. So I was really excited when I saw their little sprouts coming up this spring. So This isn't the greatest soil. We did a lot of amending with compost for this particular plot since it's permanent. And then what I generally will do for them is just allow them to grow and bloom and then senesce over the season so that they're gathering as much energy as they can into their roots so that eventually I can start cutting from them. And then for fertilizing a plot like this, since it's hard to put it into the soil directly, we do foliar spraying, so spraying the leaves with, I use vermicompost, I use some kelp and seaweed, and then just some, I make a little preparation from the sort of duff or the top layer of soil in our little stand of trees over there. So that contains a lot of just awesome soil microorganisms, native ones, that I then incubate in a bucket with some starch food, and then we spray that on the leaves so that they're getting the benefit of the native microorganisms.
That's really great.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then this bed is another perennial bed. So I have, this is just a beneficial milkweed. So that attracts so many different kinds of cool bugs like monarch butterflies and just really strange little beetles and stuff. It's really fun to watch what comes to this little patch of natives. And then I have some herbs, so lemon balm and sage, and then back there more like a mint and more of that coral spurge. So again, in Colorado, we struggle to get a lot of greenery for our bouquets, and that's a foundational element for most florists and designers for bouquets. So, you know, things like a hardy herb like lemon balm and sage work really well for us since we don't have forests full of like ferns and salal and stuff like that. So
Plus they smell good.
plus they smell good. Yeah.
So do you grow sunflowers too?
Yeah, this is a bed of sunflowers
this is what
here.
it looks
So, so these are, I grow single stem sunflowers. They're just hybrids, and that's because they just perform the best for us. They hold their petals in the right way and last the longest. They're very, very popular at the farmers market. So when I go up, I go to the Netherlands farmers market every 2 weeks. And so when I go up there, it's always essential to have sunflowers. And then the florists ask for them a lot as well.
So how do you deal with bird issues and like raccoon? I know there are a lot of raccoons around. Do they bother you, or are they pretty much?
You know, the only issues I've really had are with just agricultural pests like flea beetles, or there's a few things. I grow a lot of dahlias, and so the dahlias get a lot of predation from earwigs, grasshoppers, etc. You know, potato, cucumber beetle. So, but as far as like mammals, I don't really have an issue with mammals. Even deer, you know, we grow our tulips out here and we don't have an issue with deer. There is a big elk herd that lives over on Table Mesa. And they have trampled through things over the winter. Like the pond was frozen this winter, and you know, one morning I came out from my house and saw that they had just like run across the pond, and you know, there were these big feet and everything. They smashed through a bunch of things, but it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, it wasn't a big deal. I kind of think of that kind of thing as like, it's just a healthy ecosystem that has a lot of creatures in it. And we have a bobcat that lives in the trees back here, and it's eaten a few of our chickens, but you know, it's cool to have a bobcat, so I'm not
It is.
too sad about it.
Have you seen monarchs on these?
Yeah, I've seen the caterpillars.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I've seen the caterpillars. So that's been really cool.
Can you tell us what this is for?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm planting celosia in our hoop house right now. And so this is just to help me get the plants out of the tray. So you just set it on there and then pop them out, and then they come out really nice and easy. So it's just a little funny, helpful thing that we use. Yeah. So this is one of our hoop houses, and in here I'm growing a few different crops, and I'll be sort of transitioning to different crops over time. So I've got some rosemary in here. It's always really popular for weddings. People want it for like a place setting or something like that, and it can be really nice in a bouquet if you get it tall enough. I'm also growing one whole row of snapdragons, which I grow a lot of different varieties. This one in the front is called Chantilly, and it has an open face rather than like the traditional mouth. So they're really pretty and delicate looking, and they're a very early season snapdragon. And the next bed is Lisianthus. The common name is prairie gentian, and it's it's been bred way far away from the original native, but you know, a lot of the species, or sorry, a lot of the varieties now come from Japan, where they've been tissue cultured, and just like there's crazy technology that goes into those. But they're just a big, beautiful flower that looks just like a rose, only you know, doesn't have much scent, and it's hardier than a rose, lasts longer. And then, as I said, I'm planting celosia in here, and celosia or coxcomb is just a great sort of bizarre filler flower. It's got so many colors. It's iridescent. One of my favorite plants to grow, actually.
So can you tell us about that netting? Does that just help hold the stalks up?
Yeah. So the
I mean-
netting just snapdragons, the way I plant them really densely because it helps us. So in Colorado, we have this very bright sunshine, and we're, you know, up at 5,200 feet, and so we're really close to the sun, and that means that the plants don't have to stretch as much to get close to the sun, and so they tend to stay lower than they would in a place like, you know, the Northwest or the Northeast, or really anywhere. It's a difficult place to get long stems, so that's why you'll see shade cloth on our other houses. But also, in order to increase the stem length, we plant really close together, because that forces the plants to compete with each other for light. So they get taller and we get longer stems, which is what we need. And so the netting, you know, a snapdragon, if you planted it normally, it would have no problem standing upright, and, you know, but since we plant so densely, they're often crowded and sort of rely on each other for support. So we want to make sure that they don't fall over, break the stems, or, you know, get a right angle.
What about these little ones here? That looks like an herb.
Yeah, this is just a
It
random.
just came in by
This is a winter time that my colleague Matt put there last season. And then along the middle here we have lavender, which I just put in this spring. So again, one of those herbs that people really like to have for weddings and dried things. And so I'm looking forward to those getting big, but it'll take some time.
So what's in this covered area?
So this is my ranunculus hoop house. Ranunculus are a plant that grows from a corm, so it sort of looks like a little spider or something when you plant it, but it's like a bulb, more or less. And so they're an early spring flower. We're at the very end of ranunculus season right now. So, you know, I plant them I receive the bulbs in January, and I pre-soak them, and then I get them sprouting in some flat trays. And then usually beginning of February, they go into the ground in this hoop house. It stays covered. They get watered a few times, but not very much until they really start growing their leaves, usually in March or after equinox. And then as we continue into spring and the temperatures warm up, that's when they start producing blooms. So they have been producing for me for about a month. And I have, oh gosh, I don't know, every time we harvest, we're getting over 1,000 stems out of this hoop house. And they're very, very popular for weddings. And Oh, and then in the other bed, that's where my stock failed. I have a few Icelandic poppies in there, and then some more rosemary behind that. But this house, when we're done with the ranunculus, we'll transition to our chrysanthemums. So we grow big, beautiful heirloom chrysanthemums. We get most of our starts from King's Mums, and we propagate our own plants through cuttings.
So this looks like an interesting area. What all do you have in here? It looks like a variety.
Mostly weeds, I think. But this is, it's been difficult with the weeds here, especially in a no-till system. So we don't go through with a tractor and till up the soil every year. And that means that mainly what we're dealing with are perennial weeds. So, you know, the kinds of things like bindweed and thistle and mallow that are really difficult to eradicate. Our annual weeds will get better over time because we're not disturbing the soil and bringing up that seed bank. But I do have some direct seeded stuff in here. So this larkspur and bupleurum there were direct seeded in the fall, and so they started growing in the fall and over the winter a little bit until it got too cold, and then they sort of go dormant. And in the spring, then they have a really nice thick root system, and they start putting up their blooms around this time. So this bed is some overwintered Rudbeckia, black-eyed Susan, and it's pretty weedy. It just was weedy in this area, but then over here I'm growing some poppies for the dried pods, and then I grow a lot of. So this is safflower, and it's one of our greens that we grow. And I had a bed here that I saved for seed last year, and so that's why you see a lot of safflower where it doesn't belong, because it went to seed here. But it's fine. It's a great greenery, and then it's also actually a really good cover crop. So it just helps me fill in those areas where I don't have a lot of vegetation covering the soil, which is what we want to do. This next bed, same problem. I had some saponaria go to seed here, and so I do have snapdragons in this bed in the white fabric, but the saponaria has kind of taken over, and we'll get to this soon enough, weeding that out. So I use the white fabric because snapdragons like to be cool, and so the white helps reflect the sun, and actually that extra light helps the snapdragons grow a little bit better, you know, by getting more light onto them. And it also just keeps the soil cooler because it reflects the sunlight. So, and helps keep that moisture in, because they do like to be pretty wet. These are zinnias that I just transplanted the other day. And you can see these beds are much less weedy, and that's because they were covered by those black tarps for 2 months? Not 2 months, probably 6 weeks. And so what I had here, I had a cover crop in the fall, so I sowed rye and peas and vetch. So that grew over the winter and started to get, you know, going in the spring. And then I just covered that with these black tarps for 6 weeks. And so what we get when we do that is just a nice mulch of those plants on the surface, and then we can just plant our zinnias right into that, and we have a little bit of mulch, and don't have to till the soil or anything. So that's a really effective way to reduce weed pressure.
So how did you learn all your methodology? I know you're trying things, you do this, and then you see how that works. But what's your background as far as understanding just how all this is going to happen?
Well, let's see. So my parents are biologists, and so we just always were out backpacking and hiking and doing cool things, and I just learned a lot from them about ecology and the relationships between plants and animals and the earth, and you know, so I think that was always interesting to me. And then you know, in college I decided I didn't like any of that, and I wanted to move to New York City, and I was going to be a poet, and I was going to be an academic, and but then while I was there, I just, you know, I was born and raised in Colorado, and I just really missed I just really missed our state. I missed seeing the horizon. I missed, our beautiful mountains and streams. Like, I just missed it a lot. And I came back. Well, at school, I had gotten the idea to do Peace Corps. And so, but I also wanted a master's degree. So I did the Peace Corps Masters International, which combines your service with your Peace Corps academic work. I had to go back to school to get like my biology and chemistry and botany classes, and then I could go to graduate school and do soil and crop sciences at CSU. So then once I'd completed my coursework, then I went to Peace Corps. I spent 2.5 years in the Ecuadorian Amazon with an indigenous group. It was great, it's amazing. And then came back and did my thesis on that experience along with the work I was doing as a master's student. So I found a farm up here on the Front Range, and a friend of mine had been operating that farm. So I was like, I just visited one day. It was right after the flood in 2013, and I visited, and I said, I really like this here. Could I be your intern? So I became the intern at that farm. And then that fall, after my intern year, they offered me a share in the business, so my business used to be known as Farmette Flowers. It changed the name recently. But that's where I got started. And so the woman who had been working with flowers before me went and did straw bale housing, like building in South America, but she had already booked like 20 weddings for the next season. And so I had to learn really quickly how to grow flowers and how to be a wedding designer. So over the course of the next 4 years, I did that and grew a lot of flowers and learned how to grow flowers. I attended some courses at Floret in Washington. And I did, I just learned sort of design from videos and trial and error and that kind of thing. And then, that property was no longer available. And so I moved on to this farm. Well, I moved on first to another farm in Boulder, where I worked as the flower manager. It was a large vegetable farm. And so I worked there for 2 seasons, and that was really valuable to me because it was a farm that was stewarding over 100 acres. They had about 30 acres in production for vegetables, and they did farmers markets and CSA and used tractors and, had sort of this broader, more extensive style of farming. So it was really valuable for me to learn about irrigation and cultivation and tractors and, managing a crew and going to market and all the things that we did there. It was really, really valuable. And so with that experience, I mean, that's kind of the answer to your question, I would say, like this long discussion. Basically, it's just, I know how to do this stuff because of my experience,
So it's been a journey.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then, this property came up for lease, and, I knew I couldn't do that on my own. And so I found Cody and Mel, our friend Matt, who also is on the farm now, hooked us up, and we found that we fit really well together. They're doing vegetables, I'm doing flowers, Matt's doing like sort of larger scale vegetables, wheat, and other really fun stuff. Actually, he grows some seed crops that he's breeding different radishes and things for this climate. So we all work really well together. And we were able to put in a proposal for that lease. It was really competitive. And Alice and Carl of the Golden Hoof, who own this property, were looking for a specific group of people who would be able to take care of the land, because there's a conservation easement here that we have to abide by, and there are certain things that we have to take care of. We have to be continually improving the land. There's also open space on all 3 sides of us. So we have interesting relationships with the city and the county of Boulder. But we were able to get this lease, all 3 of us together, and then we have some subtenants who help us with the rent, and they lease out the barn, our metal barn over there. but yeah, and then so because we're here with them, I get to learn from them too, from all of their experience. And it's just incredible to have that kind of community to be able to learn together, solve problems together, support each other. So yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about this other part that
Sure.
you
I
might
mean,
want to talk about?
there's again more perennials. I have something called mountain mint there, and then oregano, which is another great filler. I've got some cool perennials in that perennial block. I've got sunflowers and then ornamental wheat, and then I have a bunch of different things in those composted beds. That area of the farm was really degraded. It starts to get just sandy and rocky and like really poor soil there. So we've been adding a lot of compost in that area. And that's just something that I observed last season. So I haven't taken soil tests, but I can, I mean, you can literally see in the bed where the plants will be this tall, and then in this one area, they just are this tall, and so I know I have to concentrate adding some nutrients to that area. Down on Matt's part, we've put in about 200 raspberries, and we're just hoping to have those as, first of all, they're great foliage for bouquets, and then also, we're hoping to have just some pick events so that folks can come, because we do a CSA pickup on the farm, and so it's really nice for folks to come and do pick raspberries, or maybe one day I'll have some flowers for people to pick as well.
Looks like you have some pretty lupin. I
Yeah.
can't quite tell if that's what it is. And
yeah, there's a bunch of
it looks
lupin back there.
beautiful.
We have a lot of amazing perennials in the back. So lupins, irises. I've got ladies mantle, and then actually back there is where we have all of our dahlias this year. So yeah.
Can you tell us about the greenhouse and what all happens in here?
You got it. Yeah. So this building was an animal barn when this place was a feedlot, and so the landowners have done a lot of work in here creating this greenhouse. So the roof was not polycarbonate, and now it is. The kind of insulation, the silvery insulation on the walls, is like this gel stuff that helps hold in heat and then release it at night. So this greenhouse stays very, very warm throughout the season, even through the winter. We've barely had to use much supplemental heat, but we do have a propane heater up there. And then in addition to all of that, what's really kind of crazy about this greenhouse is that throughout the beds and the walkways, there's a hydronic heating system. So it pumps hot water through these tubes that in the beds are buried about 2 feet deep. And so, there's a big potential here for winter growing. Cody and Melissa in the winter did some greens like lettuces and arugula in here over the winter. And I think it would be a really beautiful place to do some winter growing of certain annuals, snapdragons, maybe start forcing tulips or other bulbs in here. Just a lot of potential, but it's also got a big demand on it for our starts. So we, usually I'm starting to sow my annuals in about January. And so I really need this space to be somewhat empty, by that time. So it's a challenge. It's always like shifting seasons, and that's why, none of the tables in here are permanent. So we'll move them out when we're finished with the propagation season. But yeah, this is where we do all of our seeding into trays, and so we've got our benches over there that where we do fill all of our trays and then do our hand seeding into the trays. I use heat mats and plastic domes to make sure I get good germination from my plants. And then, but then of course, it's challenging because it stays so warm that we have to find a way to cool it. So this garage door opens on a thermostat, and then the exhaust fans in that end of the barn of the greenhouse turn on and pull cooler air through the greenhouse. We also have a misting system, so it's sort of an evaporative cooling system. So it mists water, and then it's very tiny droplets that evaporate and remove heat in that manner. It keeps it more moist in here too, which is nice. Just even to have a space like this is really a privilege and helps us to get our business going in the spring much earlier than we otherwise would, and gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of what we can do every winter and every season. So, but yeah, it's a very, very special place to be able to grow, especially with our farm partners. So you can see our little sort of beneficial flowers and a mix of different flowers and herbs and things. There's California poppies and phacelia and larkspur and things. And so that's just our attempt to bring more beneficial insects into the greenhouse so that we're not having to deal with things like fungus gnats and aphids. And I may be using some corners of the greenhouse for things that I would like to overwinter, like eucalyptus or rosemary, something like that, so that I can have more established plants to plant outside in the spring. But yeah, it really gives us a lot of flexibility, and it's just a fantastic place to be, like you said. Yeah.
So labor intensive. I think most
Yeah.
people, you go to a place and buy some plants, you just don't realize what all has to
Goes into
happen
it.
first. It's a process.
It's a long process, and of course it all starts with the seed, right? And that's why I spend a lot of time saving my own seed from our farm in the fall, because that gives us really good germination and also gives us seed that's adapted to this climate, and seed that I know will germinate in plants that will do really well here. So yeah, and then otherwise, when I can't do that, I work hard to find either organic seed or small seed company seed, and just support those growers out there that are helping us to do the growing that we do because we have good seed. So, well, this is where this is what I call our studio, and so we do a lot of different things in here. I make all of my market bouquets and our flower subscription bouquets in here. I also do any wedding arrangements here. So I keep all my tools somewhat organized. And then we also have our workshops in this space. So whenever I'm teaching floral design, this is where my participants will come and hang out and play with flowers. So in the winter or in the early spring, when I'm trying to get interest in the flowers, I'll make things with the dried flowers. And it's also can be nice if I have an early freeze, and then I still have something to sell at those later farmers markets. It's really fun. They're a lot of fun to play with. June 3rd, June 5th, June 6th, June 9th, June 11th, and June 12th, I have events. I have a wedding, a market, a wedding, and a workshop. Yeah, lots of events in June, and then, which is interesting because June is usually my sort of gap time, like it's between the early season bulbs and ranunculus and then our summer annuals, which come on in July. But since I have so many perennials that I planted last year, those are sort of my filler-ins for June. And since usually June would be peony season, but of course my peonies aren't quite ready yet. But we'll have plenty of beautiful flowers for June, so including everything that's in here. So this is our walk-in cooler. So we use what's called hi guys. We use what's called a CoolBot. So it's basically a little piece of software that overrides a traditional AC unit and makes it much colder than it would normally go. So in here I have tons of our our harvested ranunculus and lupins and everything. So those are ranunculus, tulips that have been saved. I have a big old bucket of beautiful lupins that I harvested yesterday. So these will go into our bouquets that we sell at Ryssby Market. And then, yeah, like I said, we have a lot of our tulips as well. So this is a variety called Menton, and you can see I'm getting some really nice long stems on those guys. Usually the way I harvest the tulips, I leave the bulb on. Let's see you. So I usually pull the bulb up completely with the bloom. That helps them last a lot longer in the cooler, so that I can have these actually through June for some of those weddings. So this is a variety called Gudoshnik Double, and it's fantastic. It's huge, and it has sort of this different variations in color. Really a lot of fun. All of our tulip bulbs actually come from my partner's family. He is Dutch, and his family has been importing and exporting tulip bulbs for about 60 years now. And then I sell the tulip bulbs on my website and sell them to just anybody, and also to farmers in our area. So yeah, that's our walk-in. So half of this is mine, and half of it is Cody and Melissa's of Speedwell Farm and Gardens. And then Matt with Jolly Radish shares some space in here because he does the Wednesday farmers market in Boulder. Everybody? Okay, so I have had a request to name all of the flowers. So I'll do that very, very quickly. So this is larkspur, Delphinium consolida, not Delphinium cultorum or elatum, which I don't know if anybody got. Yours is a Delphinium cultorum. This is safflower, Carthamus tinctorius. These are ranunculus, same scientific name, Ranunculus asiaticus. This is a Queen Anne's lace, Ami magus. Snapdragons, Antirrhinum magus. This is another one of the delphinium. This is Delphinium belladonna. This is Bupleurum or hare's ear, Bupleurum griffithii. African daisy, Vinidium fastuosum. Calendula, Calendula officinalis. Oops, broke that one. This is your saponaria or soapwort, yarrow, Acolea millefolium. We have scabiosa. This is a perennial scabiosa. This is Scabiosa caucasicus. And then this is paper daisies. They're like really cute little papery creatures. And that one is Helipterum roseum. This is Rudbeckia, so your black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia hirta. And I think that's everybody. So, but you have a lupin, Lupinus polyphilus. This is Cerinthe, that's honeywort, Cerinthe major. Stock, Matiola. This is the poppies. This is a Papaver somniferum. It's closed right now from the rain, which is so cool. I grow these for the pods, but they're very beautiful ephemeral flowers as well. When I make a hand-tied bouquet, so I do this for markets, or I do it for if I'm making a bouquet that I'm going to deliver. I do it for my CSA bouquets. Oh, you have a very special one there. That is a foxglove cafe creme. It's very, very special. Okay, so when I make a spiral bouquet, which is what we're going to do today, what I'm doing is I'm crossing the stems over each other, and then I'm flipping that over and adding more stems. So what you're doing is you're making a spiral, and what you're going to see is you're going to see the stems start from the middle and then spiral outward, and you get bigger and bigger over time. And the same thing happens on the bottom. These stems are close together now, but then as you add more stems, they'll get wider and wider at the bottom. So it's sort of like an hourglass shape in that, the top is here, it comes together in your hand, and then goes outward at the bottom. So what I like to do, because I'm making, a bouquet that normally is going to be seen from the top, is I like to layer all the flowers around the same plane so that when I wrap it with paper, everybody can see all the flowers that are in the bouquet from the top. Now, you might not want to do that. That's totally fine. You can also, like if you're going to make something that's going to go on the kitchen table, you can add flowers down here, especially since we're hand tying today and they're just going to go right into jars. You're not going to wrap them in paper or anything. But I'll just show you how I normally do it. So again, I'm just adding those stems crosswise to each other, but always in the same direction so that you're making that spiral, right? Like that. Like that. And then continuing to rotate the bouquet in your hand. So as you add more flowers, you're going to rotate. I'm doing this quickly, but you guys don't have to. Take your time. And then, when you have a spike flower like this, it's not going to stay on that same plane. I like them to be up higher so you can actually see most of the spike flower. So we put the base of that spike flower at the plane where we're trying to make our bouquet. Sometimes you'll have some stems that, there's too much stuff on them. You don't want that, so you can just rip that off and throw it on the floor. We like to make messes around here. This guy's going to sit up there. So you can see I'm starting to get my spiral going here. It's starting to go outward, and the shape is triangular at the top and triangular at the bottom coming together in my hand. Also, if you totally don't like this and you don't feel like doing it like this and you just want to make your own thing, that's awesome. You should do that, because this is just how I do it to make something that I sell at market. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a technique. A little saponaria for some fluff. We have, again, the yarrow. They're very fluffy bouquets these days with all these spike flowers and our little fillers. The scabious are a nice, somewhat focal flower. And then lots of fun little paper daisies. And I'm gonna go out of my color scheme now and add some yellow. There's only a little bit of Rudbeckia, but one must have Rudbeckia in June, I say. So that feels pretty good for a good sized bouquet. You know, it's getting a little bit tough for me to keep adding stems, but since I'm me, I probably will keep adding stems. And there's plenty of flowers, so, you know, if we run out of what's piled here on the table, I'll help you guys get more out of the buckets that are here. So don't be shy. They're all here for you. I'm just gonna, sometimes you'll look at it from the top and you're like, oh, I just want something else right in that spot. And you can always thread the flowers through like that. So now you can kind of really see the spiral that I've made. So then, you know, you guys don't have to use the guillotine either if you don't want to. You can just cut them by hand with your snips that you have. But I'm gonna use the guillotine. So just, you know, to chop here. So I'm looking for kind of my shortest stems, and then I'm just gonna chop. It is fun. It is very fun. And then there might be a few like leaves and stuff at the bottom of your bouquet, and you want to get rid of those because the more stuff that's in the water, the more likely it is that they'll get gross and get bacteria starting to eat them, and that's really what makes your flowers not last so long, is when the bacteria gets into the stem and clogs them up. So for that reason, I also recommend that you you can refresh the water in your flowers every day. That's best practice. Also, you can cut some of the stem off the bottom. That also helps get rid of some of that bacteria. I also really like to add just a drop of bleach to my my bouquet water because that helps keep more bacteria. And just a little bit of bleach. You can use vinegar if you're not a bleach fan. That's fine. But yeah, so this is how I made mine today. And I know that there's a lot of us to be doing this on the 3 tables, so give each other some room and let people reach in and out, and I'll try and help you get more flowers onto the table as you need it, okay? Awesome. Have fun. let's see, I think my next workshop is actually our open studio hours, which is this next Thursday, the 30th. So that's where I put out all the flowers and you come and you make whatever you want with your own vessel, and I don't provide any instructions. So that's just free form, you using the flowers. After that, we have our first summer centerpiece workshop. I don't remember what day it is, but it's in July. So that'll be a lot of fun. There'll be more sunflowers, more zinnias, really, our big summer big hitters. And that's a centerpiece class, so you're gonna get your own vessel, and you'll learn some of the techniques I use and talk about different types of flowers, different shapes that you can make in a vessel, and more kinds of fun stuff, a little bit of color theory. And then, so I have 3 of those classes this year, so there's 3 different centerpiece workshops that you can come to depending on what works. I also have a wearable flowers class. I think that's in August. So that'll be flower crowns, wristlets. We can make earrings. We can make whatever you want. And then I do have some gardening workshops in the fall. So if you're interested in growing dahlias, we have a dahlia digging and dividing class. Nelson, my partner, is part of a family who has imported tulip bulbs from Holland for about 70 years. So we also have his father who will come and help us with our bulb planting class. That's I think it's in October, late October. We also sell the bulbs on the website, so we have a lot of really great varieties of tulips and daffodils and all kinds of fun stuff. And then I think our last class will be our dried or everlasting wreaths workshop. So we'll make wreaths in November for the holidays and so forth with all the flowers. So like some of these are really good for drying, like bupleurum and larkspur and the little paper daisies. So we can use those to make things that are really cute for November or December. Awesome! Yay! I'm Helen with Artemis Flower Farm, and I'm working on a wedding arrangement today for Saturday's wedding. And yeah, just foraged some of these branches of the white poplar and the Russian olive from the yard here, the farm, and just getting started setting up some of the lines of the arrangement. So y'all are facing the back of the arrangement. This will be for like the front of the aisle. So it's gonna come down like this, and hopefully eventually the stems will all stick together. My bride is really wants a lot of greenery, so I also went and got some eucalyptus and ferns and stuff from a wholesaler the other day. But we have a lot of beautiful herbs too, so I'm using a lot of Greek oregano right now, because it's come into and out of flower, and so it's nice and green, but not too fragile. So I use a chicken wire and just floral tape to secure the chicken wire in the bowl here, and I just really like a nice shallow bowl. I think it kind of allows the flowers to do their thing, and be elevated a little bit, which is nice because then you get some drape over onto the table or onto the ground. Feels abundant and just like it's overflowing, which is how we want to feel on our wedding day. Just lots of abundance and joy. So I usually start when I'm arranging by adding my greeneries and just sort of starting to hide some of that mechanic in the bottom of the vase. And it takes a minute to get enough density of stems for them to stay where you want them to. So, but eventually you get enough that they'll behave. So something like this, usually takes me half hour or so of actual designing, but before that I've done all the work with the mechanics to, get the vase set up, and I've done all the sort of selection of the materials and everything. We've harvested Tuesday and yesterday to get everything nice and fresh. And then again, this bride really wanted plenty of ferns in particular, so we've got some sweet leather leaf, which I really like. It's easy to work with and adds some elegance to the piece. And so one thing in Colorado that's really challenging for me is the greenery. Growing it is not easy. We just don't have the kinds of precipitation that can really support a lot of lush growth around here. So, but I still do, like I said, I still do some foraging, but I try not to take more than I need and leave plenty for the creatures that are out there in the woods. This is a lemon mint Monarda, and it's one of my favorites. It's nice and smells great.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And if you would do the same thing with one of the olive branches.
So some of the Russian olive berries that are hanging out. It's not really, it's an invasive species, but it sure is pretty. It's got these silvery leaves and nice berries, and makes yellow flowers in the spring. This is marjoram. It's called wild marjoram. And yeah, it's like a nice lavender color. And this is Celosia plumosa. And we have a Celosia spicata as well, which is like more like a spike type. She wanted a lot of herbs too, which I was pleased about because I've got them. Can do. Each dahlia plant produces, on average, I've done the calculations, about 7 tubers per plant. Yeah. And so, you know, I think I've got 3,000 plants in the ground this year, so that's a lot of tubers. You know, when we end up with that many tubers, we can't plant them all on the farm, so that's when we do our dahlia tuber sale. So we'll do the sale starting in January usually. On January 1st we open up the shop, and start shipping in April. This is a type of nicotiana called Peach Screamer. Really cool little bells, and they're very sticky, but it's a nice spike flower right now. I don't have a lot of spikes at the moment, which I struggle with because I design with spikes so much. So we do a lot of work with the a florist in Longmont called Longmont Florist, and they buy a lot of stuff from us for weddings, just because they really like sort of the delicate nature of our flowers, and they have been so great, like moving to some more local blooms, and trying to be more sustainable in that way, and they've just been great. But yeah, they've been getting some wedding flowers from us, and then I sell to the Colorado Flower Collective, so there's a lot of florists there. I don't even know who they are most of the time, but they get they'll either get them for their, daily shop flowers, or for weddings. And Boulder Blooms gets a lot from me too. This is Gomphrena, or Globe Amaranth. This is a lovely little pink thing. But there's lots of colors. I really like the really hot colors. Like there's a strawberry, and there's a carmine, and an orange. Those ones are really cute, but they're just great to add a little bit of something different. Be really challenging to do the work that I want to do with using things that are going to grow well in our climate, while also satisfying sort of the wedding market. That's one of the reasons that I want to move away from weddings, is that I just feel like it's not the right market for like sustainability, unfortunately. Yeah, so we have organza bags that we put over the dahlia buds. Every single one. So there's like 700 bags in the field right now. And mostly what I'm doing right now is hiding the mechanics in the back, just in case anybody looks at the back of it. I don't need anybody to see that chicken wire to maintain the illusion. It's a little better. Yeah. years, I've gotten much more, I guess, streamlined about how I go after weddings. And because in the past I've, had up to 100 brides in a season, and it's just a lot of work to keep up with all of that and do all of that communication. So the way I do things now is that people will just get in touch with me on my website, and they'll, tell me what their wedding date is, and I'll tell them if I'm available or not. And then if I am, I send them to just an online form that tells them everything that I offer, and they can pick and choose what they want.
That's great.
So do they, how many bridesmaid bouquets do you want? How many chair, like aisle decor and stuff like that? And then if they need a, in-person or an over-the-phone consultation, then we do that. Or they can come and tour the farm, or, depending on if that's what they want to do or not. But, trying to make that a really positive like experience, and a positive sort of idea that we're unlimited in sort of the amount of flowers that we have. So, for example, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different kinds of flowers right here. And if a traditional florist were to do that, their bridal bouquet would cost way too much money, way too much money. And so what's cool about that is that I, as a flower farmer, I always have an abundance, of things to work with. And I can get I grow such a diversity of flowers that, we can make bouquets that are really interesting and really different from what you would see on Pinterest or whatever, because they're just full of really different kinds of things. On the day of making a bouquet, usually the week before, I'm making sure that I have in the field what I need, or that I have all the supplies that I need. And then, sort of tailoring. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't tailor the harvest to the wedding, because often it's just that I'm going to be working with whatever flowers are looking most beautiful in that person's colors. But again, we make it really, really simple for us and for the brides by just saying, we stick with the colors and the flowers of the season. And so, while I've got 17 different kinds of flowers here, some people would see that as limiting, that, they couldn't have, let's say, a peony in September, and, they probably could get that from another florist, but that florist would be bringing peonies in from Alaska, on a plane for lots of carbon miles, and it's just not, I just feel like to find beauty in the season that you're getting married in is more meaningful too, and to have those flowers be blooming for years and years to come, and then you can always have that flower for your anniversary or whatever. I don't know, I just think that's more meaningful, and that's the way that we want to do it around here. So
what you're making right now, what is that going to be?
This is a bridal bouquet.
It's actually the bouquet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I do I call this the claw, where I'm kind of weaving the stems in and out of my fingers, and creating kind of a basket of stems for the focal flowers to go in. And this one is just really, really fun. I'm just so thrilled that this bride wanted the sort of vibrant fall colors, because we have a lot of really awesome beautiful things right now to be in that palette. So I usually start, with a bridal bouquet. I start with the greenery or the sort of foliage, and then I'll start putting in maybe some filler flower like this statice, and then we move on to our focal flowers, and I like to add my spike flowers too, because it helps give the bouquet some structure and some shape. So I'll be putting in some snapdragons.
It's already really pretty. I love it.
I like when, when just the foliage itself is really nice,
Yeah.
because then you know you can't go wrong, right?
So is this wedding then tomorrow? I was just
Yeah.
wondering how long these last. I mean, I know you probably keep them in the cooler, right?
Yeah.
And
This wedding is tomorrow. If you make something that's in water, like a bridal bouquet, it will last, for quite a while.
Right.
I mean, I can make things 3 or 4 days ahead of time and they'll be fine, because our cooler's really so nice and just really the nice right temperature for flowers. So this bride is getting married at Lion's Crest. So her mom is gonna come and pick up everything in the morning, and they're gonna do like I think they're gonna make some of their own things, because they're getting some bulk flowers from me as well, but they wanted the bridal bouquet and the boutonnieres and things to be done professionally, so that's what we're gonna do.
what is that? That you
This
have
is
right there?
amaranth.
I just think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's a
The
really
color and just kind of the way it moves.
it's a really great fall foliage. And I really like using herbs in the bouquets too, because I think this having something that smells really good can be comforting if you're a little bit nervous or whatever.